For years, my great-grandmother, Anna Marie Francois, was one of my biggest genealogy brick walls. I knew when and where she lived. I knew who she married. I even knew her children. But one basic piece of information was missing, and it bothered me more than I can explain. I didn't know her maiden name. That may not sound unusual at first, but this wasn't a case of missing records. Her death certificate existed, and the informant listed was her own daughter, my grandmother. Surely she would have known her mother's maiden name. But when I finally received that death certificate, I saw something that stopped me cold. There was a question mark next to Anna Marie's maiden name. Her own daughter wasn't sure. That was astonishing to me. How could a woman not know her own mother's maiden name? So I did what all of us do when we're stuck. I followed the surname itself. I started researching what the name meant and where it came from. That's when I stumbled across something that completely changed how I understood this family. I found a town in France called Soissons. And my first thought was, wow, this family must have been important, powerful even, maybe nobility, maybe landowners so prominent that a town was named after them. I couldn't have been more wrong. What I eventually learned was far more interesting and far more common. The name wasn't taken from a famous family. The family most likely took their name from a place. Anna Marie's ancestors most certainly lived in or near that area for generations, possibly centuries, and were identified not by a fixed surname, but by the house or farm name associated with where they lived. And suddenly, that question mark on the death certificate made sense. Her name wasn't lost. It was never fixed to begin with. Once I understood that, everything about this family started to fall into place, and it opened my eyes to a naming system that has confused countless genealogists researching European ancestors. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. When researching European ancestors, you may run into something confusing. A family's last name seemed to change from one generation to the next. At first glance, it can look like you're dealing with different families altogether. But in many parts of Europe, people didn't always use fixed surnames like we do today. Instead, they were often identified by the name of the house or farm where they lived. In this video, we're going to explore this house and farm name system. This tradition existed in places like Luxembourg, Western Germany, Alsace, Switzerland, Austria, parts of Scandinavia, and beyond. We'll look at where and when this system was used, why it developed, how it caused surnames to change, and how to correctly interpret records that use these names. By the end, you'll understand why surnames can shift in your family tree, and how those changes might actually help you break through a genealogy brick wall. The use of house and farm names goes back hundreds of years. In some regions, it likely began in the early Middle Ages, long before surnames became common. In German-speaking areas, especially rural villages, this system may date back to before the time of Charlemagne in the 8th and 9th centuries. Written records from the late Middle Ages, roughly 1250 to 1500, already show these naming patterns. Over time, this practice spread and became firmly established in several regions. In Luxembourg and Alsace, villages were small, and houses often had names that lasted for generations. In French records, you'll often see the phrase maison dite, which means house called. These house names were used regularly from the 1600s through the 1800s. Even in the 20th century, older residents in Luxembourg sometimes referred to people by their house name instead of their surname. In Western Germany, areas like Westphalia, Hanover, the Rhineland, and Oldenburg used Hausnamen, or farm names. These names were tied to specific farms or estates and were especially common in northwest Germany. In Switzerland and Austria, house names, called Hausnamen, and farm names, often called Vulgonamen, were widely used in rural and alpine regions. These names often appeared in official records alongside surnames and, in some areas, were even part of mailing addresses well into modern times. In Scandinavia, especially Norway, farm names were also very important. People mainly used patronymics, names like Olsen or Johansdatter, but added the name of the farm where they lived. If they moved, their last name changed with the farm. This system stayed in place for centuries until laws required fixed surnames in the late 1800s and early 1900s. So why did people use house or farm names in the first place? The answer is simple: practicality. In small villages, many people shared the same first names and even the same patronymics. If there were 3 men named Hans Olsen living in the same parish, that created confusion. Adding the name of the house or farm solved the problem. Land was also incredibly important. Farms were valuable, long-lasting, and well-known in the community. The name of a farm often mattered more than the person's birth surname. Inheritance customs played a big role too. In many areas, only one child inherited the farm, often the youngest son or a designated heir. Whoever took over the farm also took over its name. That way, everyone in the village still knew which farm was which, even when ownership changed. This system worked well in communities where many families shared a small number of surnames. A house name quickly told people exactly who you were and where you belonged. This is where things get tricky for genealogists. In many records, what looks like a surname is actually a house name, and it could change during a person's lifetime. When a man inherited a farm, he often replaced his birth surname with the farm's name. Church records frequently show both names during this transition, using words like alias, genannt, diet, or vulgo, all meaning called. For example, Johann Schmidt, who inherited the Greven farm, might appear as Johann Greven, alias Schmidt. Over time, Greven would become the surname passed to his children, and Schmidt might disappear from that branch entirely. Marriage could also cause a name change. If a daughter inherited the family farm, her husband often took her farm name, not the other way around. This ensured the farm's name continued. In some Luxembourg families, even multiple husbands adopted the same house name, and children from different marriages all carried that house name forward. Moving could cause a surname change as well. In places like Luxembourg, the Netherlands, and Norway, families often took the name of the house or farm where they lived. If they moved, the name changed again. That means siblings could end up with different surnames, even though they shared the same parents. During these transitions, records often show both names. Priests and clerks gradually shifted from recording a birth surname to recording a house name, sometimes over many years. There were also regional differences. In Germany, usually only the farm owner's family used the farm name. In Norway, even servants might be identified by the farm name where they lived. In Austria, everyone living on a farm could be known by the farm's Vulgo name, regardless of their legal surname. Let's look at a few examples. In Luxembourg, some families can be traced from having no fixed surname to using a house name, and then later settling on a permanent surname. In one case, a family's name shifted from an occupation to a house name, and then split into multiple surname branches over several generations. In Westphalia, Germany, church records often show people listed with 2 surnames connected by genannt. These indicate farm ownership and clearly show when a surname changed. In Norway, someone named Lars Olson Hagelund simply meant Lars, son of Ole, living at Hagelund Farm. If Lars moved to another farm, his last name changed. When many Norwegians immigrated to America, they had to choose a permanent surname. Some chose the farm name, which is why many Norwegian American families today have farm names as last names. For researchers, This system means only one thing: be flexible. A different surname does not automatically mean a different person. Your ancestor may simply be using a house name in one record and a birth surname in another. Always look for transition records, especially marriage records where both names may appear together. Pay close attention to first names, spouses, children, and locations. Use addresses, house numbers, and land records as clues. Track the house or farm, not just the surname. Be aware that siblings may end up with different surnames, and that women may appear with two surnames that have nothing to do with marriage. Learn the language markers. Words like alias, genannt, dit, vulgo, and phrases like maison dit are huge clues that a house name is involved. By the 19th and 20th centuries, most European countries required permanent surnames. Napoleonic reforms played a major role. Areas under French control introduced civil registration and fixed surnames by the early 1800s. Germany and Austria followed in the 19th century, with civil registration becoming standard. Scandinavia was later. Sweden required fixed surnames in 1901. Norway didn't do so until 1923. After that, families chose either patronymic or a farm name as their permanent surname. Even today, some communities still use old house names informally, even though legal surnames are fixed. House and farm names remind us that our ancestors didn't think about last names the way we do today. Identity was tied to land, home, and community. For genealogists, understanding this system can make the difference between hitting a brick wall and breaking through it. When you follow the people and the places they lived, the name changes start to make sense. Every house, every farm, and every maison dit has a story. Sometimes that story is the key to finding your ancestors. If this video helped you understand surname changes in your family tree, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel for more practical genealogy tips. Have you discovered a house name or farm name in your own research? I'd love to hear about it. Share your story in the comments below. And don't forget to check the description for helpful resources to support your research. Well, that's it for today, folks. Thank you for watching. Good luck with your research, and I'll see you in the next one.